the thing about the Vikings that, was originally done for the History Channel in Canada the first year, it's kind of the first season is kind of stilted. But then the characters really kind of come alive because what happened took off and got taken over by some people who really know how to make movies, apparently. And warning, it's insanely violent. But what it shows is that this one little tiny cultural story, this one little tiny story, embedded culture, is the thing that has allowed, or that did allow, the Vikings to basically seize Europe. I mean, they were regularly taking over chunks of England, or the United Kingdom. They took Paris. I mean, they didn't just take France, they took Paris. They got all the way down into the Mediterranean and took Sicily. I mean, these guys were crazed. And the one little cultural twist story that enabled them to do this, that was not part of the primary culture and religion of the Europeans at the time, was this belief that the fastest way to get to heaven, the Vikings called it Valhalla, the fastest way to get there was to die in battle, killing other people. Now, I mean, we've fought wars, and you have ministers go out in the field with the troops and pray for them and all that kind of thing. My dad signed up for World War II at the time that the kamikaze pilots were the big threat to the American fleet, because they believed that if they died and instantly transported to the Shinto heaven, or the whatever the emperor, however he had reinvented the old Bushido, the old samurai warriors code of conduct, which said if you die in war, you go immediately to heaven. And so this is an extraordinarily potent meme to insert into a country's religion and culture. And when you do, the country changes from being what we call civilized to being what we call barbarous. A more contemporary example, we were all sitting around making fun of the 19 guys who crashed the airplanes on 9/11, saying that, they're going to get 72 virgins and all, and there were all these jokes about the 72 virgins. Because they believed that. Now, that kind of belief that if you die in battle, you go immediately to heaven, is in contemporary Islam an outlier. But it was bin Laden's outlier. Bin Laden had convinced his little band of followers, at the time we invaded Afghanistan, the best guess was about 20,000 people had gone through his training camps, and he had about 5,000 hardcore followers. The numbers are obviously much larger now because of our invasion. But he had convinced these guys, if you die attacking, the heathens, the Americans, you immediately go to heaven. And as a result, we got 9/11. You had mentioned the kamikaze pilots. This was the main belief of the Vikings. And now I'm going to have to update my article, but probably during the break at the bottom of the hour. But I'm seeing over at Raw Story now, one of the top stories. This is absolutely shocking. The headline, "Good Way to Die. An AR-15 worshiping Mooney sect mobilized for January 6th is recruiting the far right to its apocalyptic vision." Right? I mean, I wrote this op-ed yesterday afternoon and finished it up this morning without knowing that the Moonies were actually, or this is apparently the son of Reverend Moon. I've got it. But it is saying, it's a good way to die. Trying to end democracy. And it's frankly not a good way to die. I don't think you immediately get transported to heaven. But we have used this, we being Western civilization, Western culture, Christianity, we have used this in the past. In 1095, on November 27th, Pope Urban gave one of history's most famous speeches. He was speaking to the French warriors. He was sending them off to fight in Jerusalem, to seize Jerusalem from the Muslims at the time. And he said, God will lead them, for they are doing his work. There will be absolution and remission of sins for all who die in the service of Christ. Here they are poor and miserable sinners. There they will be rich and happy. And what came out of that? Well, Raymond of Agiles, who was there, wrote an eyewitness of what happened when those people who believed that if they died in battle, they would go immediately to heaven. Christians. What happened? He said, quote, some of our men cut off the heads of their enemies, others shot them with arrows of ours, others tortured them longer by casting them into the flames. Piles of heads, hands, and feet were to be seen in the streets of the city. It was necessary to pick one's way over the bodies of men and horses. But these were small matters compared to what happened at the Temple of Solomon, a place where religious services were ordinarily chanted. What happened there? If I tell the truth, it will exceed your powers of belief. So let it suffice to say this much at least, that in the temple and portico of Solomon, men rode in blood up to their knees and bridle reins. Christians. When you insert this simple little belief that if you die in battle, you go to heaven, into a religion and thus into a culture, the culture ceases to be what we call civilized, ceases to advance in ways that we call civilization, and regresses to barbarism. It regresses back to the 10th century. It, as Ed did with his little merry band in Afghanistan, as is happening in parts of Pakistan right now, as ISIS is doing across the Middle East. This is what you get. And it's a deadly and dangerous thing. And the Republican Party, I'm telling you, by flirting with this stuff, is playing with fire. These are dangerous times. And we have to call this out. We have to highlight this, and we have to wake people the hell up.